Hey, Dennis here, Guy of All Trades. Today, we're going to be talking about changing out light switches. Alright, so first order of business. This guy's actually backwards. We just moved into this house a couple months ago, and we're going around and doing a bunch of renovations and whatnot. Your first order of business, secure the power to this guy before you even pull this cover plate off. Let's make sure we're safe. Let's head down to the basement. All right, so we're down on our breaker panel here, and we want to find if we have a breaker called dining room, and looks like we sure do right here. Looks like this is 1, 3, 5 set breaker number 9 here. So let's kill this guy and go see if that did it. Well, looks like it's basement and dining room. All right, so we're back at our switch, and it looks like the dining room light no longer works. So we're gonna pop our cover plate off. And then we're gonna actually verify that we don't have power in here. I like to use one of these non-contact voltage testers. This one's from Fluke. All you do is simply turn it on. You'll see a flashing red light, and you stick it in next to your wires in here, and it'll tell you if you still have power. I do suggest testing this on an outlet before you're using this to verify that a circuit is dead, right? You want to make sure this does work before you go and electrocute yourself. All right, so one of the most important parts here, besides verifying that you have no power, is looking at your wiring in here, right? You don't want to take this apart and put it back together incorrectly. Chances are it won't work, or you will have a little bit of sparkage. So it looks like they doubled up on here, which is a big no-no in the electrical world. So we're gonna yank this off here. I'm gonna actually grab some pliers. Oh wow, this is interesting. So they're actually using a three-way switch here. You'll see the terminals on here. We got one here, we have one here, and one here. So typically, the only time you use a three-way switch is, I guess a good example would be like a two-floor home, right? You have a switch on the bottom floor going up the stairs to turn on your hallway lights upstairs, and then you have a switch also at the top of the stairs that controls that same light. So you would use this style switch in that case. I know this is the only switch that turns on our dining room lights. So they must have been just what was laying around for them. I mean, technically you can use it, but why do it? Always use the right equipment for the job. So typically on a switch there's only 2 screws. You have your power coming into the switch, and then you have your output of the switch, or load wire, which is going directly up to the light that turns the light on. Your neutrals, which are the white wires here, typically you have your neutral from the feed coming into the outlet box here, and your neutral going up to the light fixture. And this is just on a single pole switch here. So one thing you also want to pay attention to in here is your ground, right? Your device, whether it be a switch or a receptacle, needs to be grounded to the box. So as you'll see in here, hopefully you can see here, you have the 2 grounds off of, one off the feed and one off the wire going up to our light. The grounds are twisted together, and they're actually put under a screw inside of this box here. It's not done very well. Typically you use a green bonding screw in the back of these metal boxes. This is an older home from the 60s. Some of the newer homes use plastic boxes, so you won't need to bond your ground to the box. But in this case, the ground is under the screw. The ground should also continue on and connect to the switch itself. So we're gonna undo this screw in here. So I'm actually gonna pop this screw off. I've done this for a lot of the other devices I've changed in the house. I have the screw here. Here's our strain relief. Both knockouts are still installed on the bottom in here. We don't have another wire coming in through the bottom, so I'm gonna use that screw hole. I just took this out and I'm gonna put a green bonding screw with a 14 gauge wire. The reason I use 14, this is a 15 amp circuit. On 15 amp circuits, you use 14 gauge wire. All right, so we have our ground and 5/16. That's the size of these. And we're gonna put this into that bottom screw hole where we removed that strain relief and where the grounds were connected originally. So you wanna make sure this is tight, you don't want it loose at all. And once again, this only applies if you have metal boxes, right? You have to have a ground to the metal box, connecting to the grounds from your wires, and then also connecting to the switch or receptacle that you're putting in. So at this point, I'll kind of push this back a little bit so I leave a little slack in there, and I'm gonna wrap this around here, just like this. And you wanna make sure it looks nice and neat, just like this, all right? And we're gonna leave a little bit on there. We're gonna grab our Linesman Pliers here, these guys. And I typically don't like to cut off any extra that is in here, but I know we're not gonna be changing this device to anything else, so I'm gonna snip that right there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab right on here. You wanna make sure this is tight. So grab with your linesmans and twist it clockwise, like that. Now we know this is all super tight. And then we're gonna stick something on here called a Greenie. So it's like a typical wire nut, but it has a hole in the top, and it's green. So what this does is this holds all of the grounds together. And these, sometimes they feel like they take forever to tighten up, but they do end up tightening up. You'll actually see a little bit of where the wires are twisted together starting to come out, or close to that hole there. So I'll push this all back. Now we're bonded to the box and our incoming grounds, and we'll kind of shove that in here and leave this off to the side. You don't want to clip this off. This is going to be for your device that you're connecting. All right, for changing a single pole switch like this, one that's not a 3-way or a 4-way, typically you don't mess with your neutral wires. This house was built in the 60s. They use these crimp-on connectors instead of a wire nut. I'm not a huge fan of these. I've seen these fail. What happens is the wires will get loose in there and they'll start overheating and melting, and you don't want any of that in your house. So we're gonna eliminate that fire hazard. What we're gonna do is we're gonna clip this right off like that. We're gonna take both of our white wires, and you wanna hit the 14 on your wire strippers here, if you're not familiar with that. And I like to take off probably about 3/4 of an inch. That's about enough to get a nice twist on the wire. So we're gonna pop that off. And we're gonna take about 3/4 of an inch off of this guy here. And then we're gonna take both of these wires and we're gonna put them together like this. I like to go like this, make a little, almost like a Y shape. Maybe hard to see from this angle. And then I grab my Linesman Pliers and I just grab right on the top of these guys and I twist. And this is gonna make a super tight connection by twisting it like this. And then what I do is right on the very end, I normally will do a little clip off on it. And now I have a nice even end. And then I just hit it one more time with that. Then we're gonna throw a wire nut on it. Obviously there's different types of wire nuts for different size wires. A lot of times I'll use these yellow ones. I really do like these Ideal, these brownish, tannish colored ones. They're called twisters. So I'm gonna use this. I've actually switched over to these from the yellow ones. They're a little more expensive, but they seem to grab a little bit better. And remember, you don't want to bend any of these wires at like a 90-degree angle. You don't want any sharp angles, so you just want to kind of shove them in here, in the back, like that, out of the way. So we don't need those. All we need is our ground now. We need our, this guy had tape on it, and I don't know if it's damaged or if they were just marking, they were probably just marking the feed, right? You can't put 2 wires under a screw on a switch. It's actually against electrical code. So what we need to do for this is something similar that we did to the white wires. We're gonna cut these even with each other here. We're gonna strip off about 3/4 of an inch, and then we're gonna actually twist in with this pair another 14 gauge black wire, and we're gonna use that wire to connect to the switch, so we don't have 2 wires going to the switch. So we're gonna clean this up a little bit here. And you want to tuck these all the way to the back as far as you can, because when we go to put in the new switch, the switch does take up some space. So we want to make sure when we go to screw the switch in, we're not fighting those wires, right? Make it nice and neat. It looks pretty good there. All right, so we're gonna connect our switch, and this red wire is a little short, so it could be a little tricky. So to put these wires on your switch, you don't need to strip as much as you would for twisting the wires together. Typically, and you'll know too when you go to put them around the screw, if the screw's catching insulation, then you didn't strip it enough. And I'll show you what happens if we have that scenario. So we just put the wire through the hole on there, do that. You can also, you can also use the end of this, whichever you prefer. I just use this hole here. It's easy. I'm gonna cut this guy back a little bit. I typically will put my fist up to the wall, and that's how much wire I leave. That's about 4 or 5 inches right there. We'll strip this guy back. This was the original switch. This is a deco switch. These are super nice. I love them. They're not that much more expensive than this style here, like a toggle. First wire that always gets connected. You never want to forget about your ground. So that's the first wire that's going to get connected here. I'm going to grab my Phillips screwdriver. And the same thing applies here as we talked about with the grounding screw in the back. Whichever direction your screw tightens, that's the direction where the end of that loop goes. So what I do is I'll come over here, and I like these Kleins because the tip is offset on them. It's really easy to get in here and squeeze this closed. So we'll squeeze that closed here. We'll tighten this guy up. It doesn't really matter which. There, let's swap it over here. All right, now we're situated. It's out of the way. Which one it goes on. This wire is kind of short, so I'm probably gonna put it on the top terminal here. So we'll put the bottom one in here. What you can do is just kind of feed it in from the side, turn it a little bit, and then grab either, whatever you have available, needle nose, wire strippers. We're gonna grab the end of this wire like this, and we're gonna squeeze it so it's all the way around. Now you'll notice here, the screw, I stripped this one perfectly. The screw is going, when we tighten it down, it's going all on the copper of the wire. You don't want to tighten it up on the insulation. One other thing I like to do, especially in houses that have these metal outlet boxes, is I like to take a little bit of black electrical tape and just run a piece down the side where the screws are. Or you wrap the whole thing too. And this prevents the chance of those screws from touching the inside of that box and tripping a breaker. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make sure all our wires are tucked back here real nice. All right, this black one I'm gonna fold up like that. Let's push it back a little bit here. Grab our cover plate. You can buy these singly, or you can buy them in a multi-pack. I like to buy them in multi-packs because I change so many of them. And you can just pull this on the corner, and the edge of the plate will actually cut through that. Now it has the screws already captured in the plate. These are Leviton. These are the preferred. They're actually oversized, I think by 3/8 total or something like that. And then we'll take our small flathead. We'll put this over the switch here. Try to get it centered a little bit. And then we'll start that one. And then we'll get this one in. And then we're done. Looks good. All that's left to do now is turn on our breaker and give it a test here. All right, we're back at our panel here. We're gonna flip on the breaker. We should have some light here now. That's a good sign. It's staying on. All right, we got power back on. Let's give it a shot. All right, we have light. Until next time, guy of all trades, make sure you hit subscribe, hit that like button, and hit that bell so you don't miss any new content. Thanks for watching.